children, and welcome to another session on Ways with Words. Today we shall complete the poem. But before we move on to the third quatrain and the couplet, let's have a quick recap of what we studied in the last few videos. Okay, so sonnet 29, first and foremost, what is a sonnet? A sonnet is a poem or a lyric of 14 lines written in a single stanza. Now, there are two types of sonnets. Of course, there are other different sonnets also, but sonnets can be broadly classified as or into Petrarchan sonnet and Shakespearean sonnet. Petrarchan sonnet is otherwise referred to as the Italian sonnet, and Shakespearean sonnet is called the English sonnet. Now, Petrarchan sonnet or the Italian sonnet was named after Petrarch, the 14th century Italian poet. He was the one who started or used this form or the sonnet form. In fact, it is, if you go a little to the, that we had explained, or I did tell you that in the beginning also, from Greece. It has its origin from Greece, and then it comes to the Ottoman Turks and the burning of Greece. People from Greece, they took whatever they had in with them, the manuscripts, the important manuscripts, and they fled to Italy. And it is from there that we have most of the important historical writings from Greece. Anyway, Petrarch came across this form of sonnet, and he popularized it. He started writing or using this sonnet form, and he popularized it. And thus we have the Italian sonnet under the name of Petrarch. Now, how did it come to England? It came to England through the two diplomats who went to Italy, Yacht and Surrey. Yacht and Surrey fell in love with this sonnet form, and they brought it to England. And so we have the Shakespearean or the English sonnet. It was called the English sonnet. Yacht and Surrey modified the Petrarchan form of sonnet, and they termed it English sonnet. Since it was popularized by Shakespeare, it came to be known as Shakespearean sonnet. So the Petrarchan sonnet, the difference between Petrarchan sonnet and Shakespearean sonnet is that Petrarchan sonnet was is divided into two parts, octave and sestet. See, a sonnet is a lyric of 14 lines written in a single stanza, okay, but there are divisions. So in sonnet, Petrarchan sonnet, you have octave and you have the sestet, and in the octave comes the rhyme scheme ABBA, ABBA, which I asked you to, for easier to memorize it better, to remember it better, you can call it, or you can say Abba, Abba, so that you won't forget. So the Petrarchan sonnet, you have the octave, the 6 lines, which has Abba, Abba rhyme scheme. And then the sestet, you have CDE, CDE. Okay, so the octave, the 8 lines in the octave, and the 6 lines in sestet, we have CDE, CDE. And then in Shakespearean sonnet, the Shakespearean sonnet is divided into quatrains and a couplet. 3 quatrains. We have 3 quatrains and 1 couplet. 1 quatrain consists of 4 lines, and the couplet is 2 lines. So a Shakespearean sonnet is divided into, or Shakespearean stanza, you can say stanza, or the stanzaic structure of Shakespearean sonnet. If you get a question, what is the stanzaic structure of Shakespearean sonnet, you have to write as Shakespearean sonnet is divided into 3 quatrains and a couplet. Okay, so and the rhyme scheme, what is the rhyme scheme? AB, AB, CD, CD, EF, EF, GG. All right. So, and then we also discussed our the poem, and the first quatrain introduces the mood of the poet. It also introduces the theme of the poem. What is the theme of the poem? It is about, the theme of the poem is on his state of mind, the poet's state of mind. And what is the mood of the poet? The mood is that of despondency, depression, sadness, woes and sorrows, right? Now, the poet, he feels that he feels like an outcast. Now, what is an outcast? A social outcast. ഈ സമൂഹം തിരസ്കരിച്ച കുറച്ച് ആൾക്കാർ, അതേപോലെയാണ് ഷേക്സ്പിയറിനും തോന്നിയിട്ടുള്ളത്. That he looks or he feels like an outcast. I also told you the difference between outcast and with an E and outcast without an E. Here the outcast means a person who cannot be considered a part of a good society. You cannot consider murderers and criminals as a part of good society. You don't consider them so. You consider them as outcast, or a person who's shamed or who's done something really awful, bad, and cannot be considered a part of the good society, is often termed as outcast. Now here, the poet also feels that he is an outcast, and because the theatres were closed, he is now impoverished, engulfed in poverty. പൈസ ഇല്ല അല്ലേ, വരുമാന മാർഗമൊന്നുമില്ല, and his livelihood has stopped. So that now he is not able to write plays. He's a playwright, he cannot write plays, and therefore since the theatres were closed, he has gone out of he does not have work, and he is impoverished. And what does he do? He prays to God. And when he prays to God, he feels that even his prayers are unanswered. He has been forsaken by God. ദൈവം വരെ ആളെ കൈ ഒഴിഞ്ഞ ഒരു മട്ട് പോലെയാണ് ആൾക്ക് തോന്നുന്നത്. He's depressed. സങ്കടം കൊണ്ട് ആകെ ജീവിതം തന്നെ അവസാനിപ്പിച്ചാൽ മതി എന്നുള്ളൊരു അവസ്ഥയിലാണ് ഷേക്സ്പിയർ നിൽക്കുന്നത്. ഷേക്സ്പിയർ അല്ലെങ്കിൽ പോയറ്റ് എന്ന് വേണമെങ്കിൽ പറയാം. ഇത് സോണറ്റ് എന്ന് പറയുന്നത് എല്ലാം ഷേക്സ്പിയറിയൻ സോണറ്റ്, അല്ലെങ്കിൽ ഷേക്സ്പിയറിൻ്റെ സോണറ്റ്സ് എല്ലാം പേഴ്സണൽ സോണറ്റ്സാണ്. ഒന്നുകിൽ അതിൽ പകുതി ഭാഗം യങ് യൂത്ത് അല്ലെങ്കിൽ യങ് മാൻ അഡ്രസ്സ് ചെയ്തിട്ടുള്ളതാണ്, അതല്ലാന്നുണ്ടെങ്കിൽ അതിൻ്റെ ബാക്കിയുള്ള ഭാഗം ഡാർക്ക് ലേഡിക്ക് വേണ്ടിയിട്ടാണ്. അപ്പോൾ പേഴ്സണൽ സോണറ്റ്സ് എന്ന് തന്നെ പറയാം. അതുകൊണ്ട് പോയറ്റ് എന്ന് പറയുന്നതിനെക്കാട്ടിലും ഷേക്സ്പിയർ എന്ന് തന്നെ നമുക്ക് വേണമെങ്കിൽ പറയാം. അപ്പോൾ ഷേക്സ്പിയറിന് ദൈവം തന്നെ ആളെ കൈ ഒഴിഞ്ഞ ഒരു മട്ടാണ്. ദൈവം കൈ ഒഴിഞ്ഞു, ആരുമില്ല, സമൂഹം തിരസ്കരിച്ച ഒരു അവസ്ഥ പോലെയാണ് ആൾക്ക് തോന്നുന്നത്. അതുകൊണ്ട് ഒരു ജീവിതം തന്നെ അവസാനിപ്പിച്ചാൽ മതി എന്നുള്ളൊരവസ്ഥയിലാണ് ഇപ്പം ആളിരിക്കുന്നത്. And he feels that he is hated by the whole world. So again, when we are to discuss of the literary or the figures of speech, first we have synecdoche in men's eyes. Synecdoche. What is synecdoche? Part of a whole is synecdoche. Okay, and then example, check out my brand new wheels, which is a reference to the car. Okay, so that's a synecdoche. Then what do you have? What else do we have? We have deaf heaven. Deaf heaven is personification. Heaven is looked upon as a human being which can hear. And now that Shakespeare is praying, heaven seems to be closing its ears and saying, "I am not going to listen to you." So it's given human-like quality. That is personification. What's the third one? Third one is exaggeration. Look at the way he feels he's hated by the world and society. Okay, that is his feeling, because he's sad and depressed, and therefore he feels that the whole society is against him. He feels like an outcast. One reason I told you, the scathing comment of Robert Greene, calling him an upstart crow beautified by our feathers, calling him, or saying that he often steals and copies our plays, and warning the other university wits and other playwrights to be careful of Shakespeare. That has made or ruined his reputation. And therefore he feels sad, and therefore he feels that he's hated by the society, and so he considers himself, or so he does not have anybody, he's all alone, he feels very lonely, he's all alone, right? And that is what is that figure of speech? It's an exaggeration. That's his mood of state of mind, or it is his mood that makes him feel so. So there is an exaggeration there. And what is that exaggeration? What do we call exaggeration? Hyperbole. Okay, hyperbole. Like for instance, another example would be the husband tells the wife, "I would love you for 1,000 years." How can a man or a person love another for 1,000 years? He lives only for maybe a maximum of 120, 150, maximum, okay, 120 years perhaps. Other than that, the human lifespan itself, you can't live for 1,000 years. So that's exaggeration, hyperbole. And in the second quatrain, what do we have in the second quatrain? The mood changes, right? There is still he's sad and he's depressed. At the same time, this mood is mixed with envy and anger. He is in a very irritable condition. He's irritated, he's envious, he's angry, right? And he looks around and feels that others are better off than him. Shakespeare again had this problem of, now here you find the inferiority complex working. He feels that others are pretty looking, or others are better than him. Some has better looks, some has better scope and opportunity. Here is also a reference to say that the young man that he's speaking about, obviously his half of his sonnets are addressed to that young man. So here you have that young man being spoken about. Maybe he's referring to that young man's beauty. Okay, he's beautiful. And Shakespeare was not very beautiful. He was bald. കഷണ്ടിയായിരുന്നു, അതേപോലെ തന്നെ കാണാൻ അത്ര ഭംഗിയൊന്നും ഉണ്ടായിരുന്നില്ല. അപ്പം അതിൻ്റെ ഒരു വിഷമവും സങ്കടവും ഇൻഫീരിയോറിറ്റി കോംപ്ലക്സും ഷേക്സ്പിയറിന് നന്നായിട്ടുണ്ടായിരുന്നു. So he is envious of other person's features. And also he thinks about others. He thinks that, see, Shakespeare was a very talented person, but because of Robert Greene's scathing comment, he started to feel, okay, I wish I had more skill. I was more skilled or more talented than this and that person or his friends around him. And he also speaks about those with the opportunities to enter the court of Queen Elizabeth. Those who are able, those who were well off, those who were fortunate enough to get patrons. Who are the patrons? Like sponsors, that present day sponsors. So he looks at others who are better off than him, and he feels sad that he does not have anybody. He does not have good skill or good looks nor any good opportunities, and he feels very sad. So you have the second quatrain, anger. It's a mixture of emotions, where you have sorrow, anger, jealousy, yes, and then we come to the third quatrain. Okay, so the third quatrain, in the third quatrain we find that, let's read the third quatrain, all right? I hope you have the textbook with you. You are supposed to buy the textbook. All right, you get it if you are in and around Pavaratty, you will get it in Sion. If you are elsewhere, if you are in Thrissur, you will get it in HNC bookshop or Minerva. If you are in and around Kundangalam area, then you get it in HNC bookshop Kundangalam. So these are the places where you can get. In Pavaratty, you get it in Sion. You can just call him and ask him if the book is available, and then you may go and get the book. But it is advisable that you get the book as soon as possible. Okay, so let's start the third quatrain. Yet in these thoughts myself despising, happily I think on thee, and then my state, like the lark at break of day arising from sullen earth, sings hymns at heaven's gate. For thy sweet love remembered such wealth brings, that then I scorn to change my state with kings. So yet in these thoughts myself almost despising. Look at the word yet over there. Yet in these thoughts myself despising. What thoughts? Despising. What does it mean by, what is the meaning of the word despising? Despising means hating, hatred. Yet in these thoughts myself almost despising. Yet even though in the midst of all these situations, even though I am engulfed by sadness, I have been shamed in front of the society, I feel like an outcast, I don't have money, I'm engulfed by poverty, even at this times of darkness, even when I don't have any hope, even when I feel very pessimistic. What is pessimistic? A pessimist always thinks in a very negative way. He always feels that the world is too much on him. Whereas a positive person, an optimist, is always optimistic. He always thinks that, okay, there is always a light at the end of the tunnel. There is a ray of light at the end of the tunnel. He always believes in that ray of light. That's an optimist. Whereas a pessimist, now he feels very pessimistic. Shakespeare is in a very despondent state and therefore he feels very pessimistic. And he says, even in this pessimistic, very despondent state, in a state where I hate myself, I want to just end my life, where he is very suicidal, he says, even in this thought, when I suddenly think about you, happily I think on thee. Thee means you. Who is that thee? I told you the first half of the of Shakespeare's sonnets are addressed, 154 sonnets in that. The first half is addressed to the young man. So obviously sonnet 29 comes under it. So he's addressing, or he's speaking about this young man, his favorite, his friend, the best friend perhaps. Okay, so he says, happily I think on thee. Okay, even in this, amidst this terrible feeling of despondency, of this feeling where I hate myself almost despising, meaning I hate myself. In this condition, I just feel, I have this hatred towards myself and I just want to end my life. Even at this stage, when I think of you, and my state suddenly changes. What is that state here? Did you notice that this is the second time we are speaking about state? The first one is the outcast state, where he is depressed, he is sad. Now here in the second stage, the second state that is spoken here, then my state. The state is the mood or the state of mind of the poet here. The state of mind of the poet suddenly changes, it seems, when he thinks about his friend, his best friend, the young man. Okay, and when he thinks about him, suddenly there is a change in the mood of the poet. There is an upliftment in the mood of the poet. The poet from depression suddenly moves to that of great happiness. So when I think about you, suddenly all this depression, all these despising things that I am hearing, that I am going through, the experiences of hating myself, all that changes and suddenly I feel very happy. And how does he compare this state of mind? He compares this state of mind to that of a lark. Like to the lark at break of day, arising from sullen earth, sings hymns at heaven's gate. Now what is a lark? Skylark. Here it is a reference to the skylark. Skylark is a singing bird. Okay, it sings hymns, it loves to sing and it loves to fly also. So it flies high in the sky. So he speaks about his mood is compared. There's a simile here. The figure of speech used is simile, like to the lark. So when you use the word like and as, it is a simile. So the comparison is to that of a skylark, which is a singing bird, which flies high in the sky and sings hymns or sings song. So here the song of the bird is compared to that of a joyful song, where the skylark sings praises of nature and its creator. So it is singing about the beauty of nature and also thanking the creator, that is God. So here there is a comparison to that of the skylark and Shakespeare. So just like the skylark is happy when it flies high in the sky, it is in a happy state, and when you are in a happy state you sing songs, right? And you thank God. So it's a hymn. Hymn is a holy song. So the skylark is singing hymns to the creator. Just like that, Shakespeare is also happy when he thinks about. Now, another thing that you have to remember is this state of mind. The comparison to the state of mind is not exactly to the singing state of the bird. It is not to the song of the bird that is being compared here, but rather the comparison is made to the upward flight of the bird. Then at break of day, arising from sullen earth. Look at the word arising. From that you understand that the simile that is used here is about the upward flight of the bird. Now, from where does the skylark fly? The skylark flies from the earth, and then it flies high up into the sky. ഈ സ്കൈലാർക്ക് എന്ന് പറയുന്ന ഈ കുരുവി അല്ലെങ്കിൽ ഈ കിളി അതിന് പറന്നു നടക്കാനാണ് ഇഷ്ടം. അത് രാവിലെ വളരെ നേരത്തെ തന്നെ നേരം പുലരുമ്പോൾ പറക്കുന്ന പക്ഷിയാണ്. അതായത് ഒരു 3, 3:30, 4 മണി എന്നുള്ള ഒരു സമയം വേണമെങ്കിൽ വയ്ക്കാം. When the day breaks, when you have the first streak of sunlight, when it does not even reach the earth, the sullen earth. Now look at the word sullen. What does it mean? Sullen means dark, dreary, sleepy. 3, 3:30 അല്ലെങ്കിൽ 4 മണി എന്ന് പറഞ്ഞാലും പുലർച്ചെയാണ്. പക്ഷേ അപ്പോഴും ഭൂമി ഇരുണ്ടിട്ടാണ് ഇരിക്കുന്നത്. The earth is dark. The earth, in the sense, this atmosphere is dark. But you have the first few rays of the sun up in the sky. So the skylark, it flies early. It is an early bird. It flies high in the sky. So from the dark, dreary, sleepy earth, it rises to the sky, and the moment it rises to the sky, it flies high up. വളരെ ഉയരത്തിൽ പറക്കുന്ന ഒരു പക്ഷിയും കൂടെയാണ് ഈ സ്കൈലാർക്ക് എന്ന് പറയുന്നത്. അപ്പോൾ ഇവിടെ നിന്ന് ഇങ്ങനെ പറക്കുമ്പോൾ the take off, okay, that gives a kind of ecstasy to the bird. That gives the bird a kind of happiness, extreme happiness. So this ecstasy is the one that Shakespeare compares his mood to. So the upliftment of his mood from that of depression is metaphorical here. Sullen earth. The word sullen earth is a reference to what? Reference to Shakespeare's despondency or Shakespeare's depression. And it is from the sullen earth, that of depression, that there is a change in the mood of the poet, or the upliftment in the mood of the poet, and that is when he thinks about whom? Thinks about the friend. So likewise, when it is daybreak, the skylark, it is happy when the day breaks. The first rays of the sun can be compared to the friend, the thought of the friend. So when it takes off, there is an upliftment. That bird takes off high up into the sky, and it gets a kind of ecstasy, a kind of feeling, a happiness. So the upliftment, there is a mood, a change in or as it flies higher and higher into the sky, the darkness loses, or the darkness becomes dim, and it is flying high into that rays of sunlight. Okay, so likewise, when Shakespeare thinks about his friend, his young friend, from depression, the dark, dreary, gloomy depression, it moves, suddenly changes and shifts to that of happiness. Happiness is always to do with brightness, right, like the sun's rays. So that is what is being spoken about here. You don't think that this comparison is to the singing hymns of the bird in the sky. Of course, singing, when do you sing hymns? When you are very happy, right? So likewise, Shakespeare, from a gloomy, unhappy state, there is a change in the mood of the poet to that of happiness, and now that he is happy, he starts singing praises about his friend, the young man that is being spoken of. Okay, so I hope you understood that. That is the simile here. So the upward flight of the bird. I'll give you another example to feel its ecstasy. Now, bike allengil സൈക്കിളോ ബൈക്കോ ഓടിച്ചു പോകാമെന്ന് വെച്ചോ. കാറ് ഓടിക്കാട്ടിലും നല്ലത് സൈക്കിളും ബൈക്കുമാണ്. ഇപ്പോൾ സൈക്കിൾ അല്ലെങ്കിൽ ബൈക്ക് ഓടിക്കുന്ന സമയത്ത് റോഡിലൊന്നും ആരുമില്ല എന്ന് വിചാരിക്കുക, റോഡ് കാലി. ഇപ്പോൾ അങ്ങനെയൊക്കെയാണല്ലോ, പാൻഡമിക് അല്ലേ. അപ്പോൾ റോഡിൽ ആരുമില്ല, നിങ്ങൾക്ക് സ്പീഡിൽ ഓടിക്കാം, ഒരു പേടിയും പേടിക്കാതെ സ്പീഡിൽ ഓടിച്ചു പോകാൻ പറ്റുന്നു. അപ്പം നിങ്ങളത് ബൈക്ക് അല്ലെങ്കിൽ സൈക്കിൾ ഓടിക്കുമ്പോഴത്തേക്കും ഈ കാറ്റ് വന്ന് മുഖത്ത് വീശുന്നു, ആ ഒരു ഫീലിംഗ്, വെൻ യു ഗോ ഫാസ്റ്റ് ഓർ വെൻ യു ക്ലൈംബ് ഡൗൺ എ ഹിൽ, when you run and climb down a hill also, there is a kind of joy, a kind of feeling that happens in you, an ecstasy that happens in you. That is that feeling that Shakespeare speaks about, the takeoff. Likewise, when a flight takes off, when it takes off, there is a kind of feeling that is created deep in your mind, a kind of a different feeling, right, which cannot be put into words. An ecstasy, is it ecstasy, is it happiness? But you feel good about it. So likewise, you feel the joy when you take off, or when you ride a bicycle at very fast, when you don't have, of course, without anything on the road, no vehicles on the road, you feel a kind of happiness when the wind brushes your face, and you feel very secure, very happy, right? So likewise, the skylark also feels very happy, it is elated and happy when it soars high up into the sky from the dark, dreary earth. When it soars, when it flies high up in the sky, it feels it is in a state of ecstasy, it is in a state of excitement, happiness. When it reaches the sky, it is in a singing state, it is in a very happy state. Okay, so now come to the last two lines. So the last two lines, I want you to connect this last two lines with what we stopped. The ecstasy, the feeling of ecstasy that the poet has. See, for thy sweet love remembered such wealth brings, then that I scorn to change my state with kings. So he says that the kind of feeling that I get upon thinking about you now uplifts my mood, and I am in a state of ecstasy, state of happiness, in a very happy mood, and I am filled with hope. I am rich with hope and happiness, and I feel like a wealthy king. I feel that I am the most rich person in the world, because who's rich? Who's not? It's not about money, it's about how happy and peaceful you are. That is how you describe a person as being rich. So here Shakespeare says, when I think about you, the state of mind that I had earlier, the state of mind where I was sad, I was depressed, I was suicidal, has completely changed. Now my mood is that of great extreme happiness. And if at all a great king, a wealthy king is to come to me and say, Shakespeare, do one thing, I will give you half of my empire, no, the whole of my empire, for that will you give me your happiness? Shakespeare would say, no, my dear friend, I would not exchange this state of happiness for even the richest of the rich or richest of the rich kings in the world. Even if a rich king comes to me and asks me to exchange this for money, I would not give my state of happiness to anyone. That is the feeling that I have right now, the feeling of ecstasy when I think about you, my friend. Okay, so there you have the third state. The third state, so the word state is being spoken of by Shakespeare 3 times. So 3 times the meaning changes, and in the last line you will feel or find a pun in the word. Pun means a play of words. Okay, pun in the word state. So Shakespeare speaks about the state that is parallel to that of a king. He is as wealthy as any rich kings in the world because he is now filled with extreme happiness, extreme ecstasy. And what is the reason for his ecstasy and or happiness? It is his thoughts about his friend, how happy they were, or how about his friendship. Now he feels secure, he feels happy, he feels very optimistic. All right, so the couplets resolve the problem. What was the problem? The problem that was introduced in the first 3 quatrains is resolved when it comes to the couplets. The problem was that of the state of mind, the poet being in a terrible state of mind, which is now resolved in the couplets. In the couplets there is a resolution, there is a solution, and he has a state of mind, his state of mind has changed. There is a turn of mood of the poet when it comes to the couplets. From that of anger, from that of depression and envy, he is now calm, he is now peaceful upon thinking about his friend. Okay, probably Earl of Southampton. We do not know. Again, we don't have Shakespeare here to ask him whether it was about Earl of Southampton or Earl of Pembroke, or whether it was his co-actors that he is speaking about. We don't know. So let's just assume, let's just give or state the young man who's being spoken about, who was his friend or who is his friend, and a friendship that Shakespeare truly values. So that's about it with Sonnet 29. So Sonnet 29, let's look at the rhyme scheme of the third quatrain. Despising. Despising does not rhyme with anything above. Right? The first 2 quatrains എടുത്തു നോക്കുമ്പോഴത്തേക്ക് despising എന്ന് പറയുന്ന വാക്ക് വേറൊന്നിലും റൈം ചെയ്യുന്നില്ല. അപ്പോൾ what we will do is we will give the letter E. Then happily I think on thee and then my state. So E കഴിഞ്ഞു കഴിഞ്ഞാൽ F. State ഉം despising, 2 different rhymes. Right? So happily I think on thee and then my state. So F. Then arising. Look at the word arising. Like to the lark at break of day, arising. So despising, arising rhymes. E, E. Then from sullen earth sings hymns at heaven's gate is F. So state and gate, F. So EF, EF. And last 2 couplets, look at the last 2 couplets, brings and kings. They rhyme. So GG. So let's have a look at the rhyme scheme once more. The first quatrain, AB, AB. Second quatrain, CD, CD. Third quatrain, EF, EF. And the couplet, GG. Okay, so that's with Sonnet 29. We have completed the sonnet. I hope you understood. The lark symbol is the only one that you will find a little difficult to understand. So see, this lark symbol is very easy also. The lark symbol is that of the state of mind of the poet. The poet is happy, just like the skylark who loves to fly, from the earth. It's not a bird that would like to sit on a tree and it sits there all the time. It is a bird that loves to fly high in the sky, and it is always singing when it flies high. So the singing state and the skylark is a symbol of Shakespeare and his state of mind. When he thinks about his friend, he is very happy. He is in a state of ecstasy, just like the upward flight of the bird. When the bird takes off from the dark sleeping earth, the bird is happy to fly from that dark sleepy earth to that of what, to up into the sky, where it will find the first rays of the sun. The first few strokes or rays of the sun can be found high in the sky. So it loves to fly to that light, to that high up in the sky. So that lark is a symbol of the change in the mood of the poet. There is an upliftment, just like the upward flight of the bird. There is an upliftment from that of depression to that of extreme happiness to the poet when he thinks about whom? When he thinks about his friend, the Earl of Southampton, or we don't know, again the young man. Okay, when he thinks about the young man. So let's just quickly discuss some of the important short questions. Paragraph questions you will have to write and bring. You'll have to write it and send it to me as a PDF. Okay, type it. You will have to type it. Please don't write it and then scan it. Please type it and make a PDF out of it and then send it to me. My mail ID shall be posted in the WhatsApp group. So you have to type it and send it. Alright. So the first quote any line from the poem that expresses the poet's hope. What is that line that expresses the poet's hope? Happily I think on thee, and then my state like to the lark at break of day arising. That is the line that expresses the poet's hope. Then identify the figure of speech. What is that? Happily I think on thee, and then my state. This figure of speech is simile. Identify the figure of speech in the expression deaf heaven. Deaf heaven, it is personification. Then what is the rhyme scheme? A, B, A, B, C, D, C, D, E, F, E, F, G, G. Then what is the mood of the poet? The particular state of mind of the poet in which the poem was written. Mood is that of despair, that of insecurity, that of troubled state, that of despondency, and so on. Lark as a symbol, I just told you. Then pick out expression from the poem to show poet's dejection. You will find it in the first two quatrains. Dejection of the poet. Dejection, again, dejection is another word for depression, sorrow, sadness. Okay, you will find it in the first two quatrains. Then comment on the imagery of the lark. Now that is I shall be giving you a note in your WhatsApp group. So imagery, you can leave that. Then final couplet, briefly explain the final couplet. Again, it is there, the explanation is given in the video. And the state, the word state, 3 times it is repeated, thrice. The first is the outcast state, second is the singing state of the bird, which shows none other than the state of mind of the poet. The singing state of the bird is actually the state of mind of the poet. Okay, from the happy mood of the poet when he thinks about his friend. Then the last one, the last state is the state which is parallel to that of a emperor, a very rich king. He is like a rich king. Why? Because he is filled with happiness and peace. Okay, and that makes a person wealthy. Wealthy is when you are peaceful and when you are very, very happy. So here he says that I am extremely happy and wealthy, that I would not exchange this wealth. Which wealth? Happiness. The state of happiness is his wealth, and that too when he thinks about his friend, the young man. Okay, that I shall not exchange with any other person in the world for anything. Okay, I will not exchange it with even the richest of the rich kings. It is that of a parallel to a state that is parallel to that of an emperor, a rich emperor. All right, so that's with Sonnet 29. You have a small comparison, an activity. I want you to go through Sonnet 30. Okay, it's there in your textbook, page 8. I want you to read through Sonnet 30, and I want you to compare Sonnet 30 with Sonnet 29, bearing all these things in mind. Now see how things are different, how Shakespeare expresses his mood or the theme of the poem, how they are different. These are all connected sonnets actually. 29, 28, 29 and 30 are all connected. It has similar themes, but they also are different. Okay, for that you will do a little bit of research. You will have to Google and search Sonnet 30 and then make a comparison with Sonnet 29. This is your assignment for first internals. Alright, so thank you and keep safe.